Hey everyone, I'm Mustafa Diab, and welcome back to your go-to spot for the world's biggest stories. Today, we're diving into November 2025's top headlines, politics, science, tech, and a dash of good news to keep us all inspired. Let's jump right in and see what the world's been up to this week. November's political scene was full of surprises, with unexpected twists and dramatic turns unfolding across continents, from the corridors of power in Washington to the vibrant streets of Paris, and from the bustling cities of Brazil to the historic halls of Westminster. The world watched as democracy played out in real time, often defying predictions and challenging the status quo. In the United States, a record-breaking turnout among young voters sent shockwaves through the political establishment. Their voices, amplified by social media and grassroots organizing, reshaped the makeup of Congress and forced both major parties to reconsider their platforms and outreach. Political strategists scrambled to analyze the new landscape, as issues like climate change, student debt, and social justice took center stage. The energy and determination of this new generation signaled a shift in priorities, making it clear that the future of American politics would be shaped by those who had long been underestimated. Meanwhile, in France, the election of a centrist newcomer stunned political analysts and voters alike. The victory was not just a personal triumph, but a signal of broader changes sweeping across Europe. Voters, weary of polarization and extremism, rallied behind a message of unity and pragmatic reform. The celebrations in Paris reflected a sense of hope and renewal, as the new president promised to bridge divides and restore faith in democratic institutions. In Brazil, a snap election brought together a diverse coalition that campaigned on promises of bold climate action and sweeping social reforms. Environmental activists and indigenous leaders found new allies in government, raising hopes for the Amazon and marginalized communities. Across the Atlantic, Nigeria celebrated a peaceful transfer of power, an achievement that resonated across Africa. For the first time, a historic number of women took seats in parliament, inspiring young girls and signaling progress toward gender equality. The atmosphere was one of cautious optimism, as citizens looked to their leaders to deliver on promises of stability and inclusion. In India, a hung parliament left the nation's political future hanging in the balance. Coalition talks dominated headlines, with parties negotiating late into the night to form a stable government. The uncertainty underscored the complexity of India's democracy, where diverse voices and regional interests must find common ground. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, Yemen's peace summit in Doha offered a rare glimmer of hope. After years of conflict, leaders from across the region gathered to discuss reconciliation, raising cautious optimism for a more peaceful future. The United Kingdom saw its own share of drama, as Parliament passed sweeping reforms aimed at tackling income inequality and the housing crisis. The new laws sparked both cheers and protests, with supporters celebrating in the streets and critics voicing concerns about implementation. The debates inside Parliament were heated, reflecting the deep divisions within British society. Yet, for many, the reforms represented a step toward a fairer and more inclusive future. Across the globe, democracy proved unpredictable but undeniably alive. In country after country, people lined up to vote, marched for their rights, and demanded accountability from those in power. Mass demonstrations and peaceful rallies became symbols of the hope by symbols of as citizens refused to accept the status quo. The message was clear: the desire for change transcends borders, and the fight for democracy is far from over. This week, the world reminded us that politics is messy, unpredictable, and often contentious, but it's also about hope, participation, and the collective effort to shape a better future. As new leaders take office and old systems are challenged, one thing remains certain: the story of democracy is still being written, and every voice matters. The economic world was just as dramatic, with markets across the globe reacting to a whirlwind of policy changes, shifting consumer confidence, and the ever-present uncertainty that defines our times. From Wall Street to Shanghai, investors and policymakers alike were on edge, watching for signals that could shape the months ahead. The U.S. Federal Reserve made headlines by pausing its cycle of interest rate hikes, a move that surprised some analysts and brought a sigh of relief to borrowers and businesses. This decision reflected growing concerns about economic slowdown, but also a cautious optimism that inflation might finally be coming under control. Meanwhile, Europe's central banks took coordinated action to stabilize the euro, introducing new measures to support lending and shore up confidence in the region's financial system. Their efforts were aimed at preventing further volatility and ensuring that the eurozone could weather ongoing global shocks. In Asia, China's modest economic rebound was largely credited to a surge in technology exports, as the country's manufacturers ramped up production to meet global demand for electronics and green tech. This uptick offered hope for a broader recovery, even as other sectors lagged behind. Yet, beneath the surface, concerns lingered over youth unemployment in China's cities. Despite the export boom, millions of young graduates struggled to find stable jobs, raising questions about the sustainability of the recovery and the challenges facing the next generation. In South America, Argentina and Chile experienced a welcome cooling of inflation, which had previously strained household budgets and sparked public protests. For many families, this meant a little more breathing room at the checkout counter and a cautious sense of optimism about the future. Over in Africa, Nigeria's new government launched ambitious reforms aimed at diversifying the economy beyond oil. By investing in technology, agriculture, and infrastructure, leaders hope to create new opportunities and reduce the country's vulnerability to global commodity swings. The world of digital assets also saw major developments. Crypto markets surged after regulatory approvals in South Korea and the European Union, sparking renewed interest from investors. However, experts were quick to urge caution, reminding everyone of the risks and volatility that still define the sector. The International Monetary Fund released its latest outlook, projecting moderate global growth for 2026. While this forecast was more positive than some had feared, it also came with a note of caution about the fragility of the recovery. The IMF warned that persistent inequality and the growing impact of climate change could threaten progress, especially in vulnerable regions. Rising sea levels, extreme weather, and widening wealth gaps remain major challenges for policymakers worldwide. In summary, the global economy is showing signs of steadiness and resilience, but the journey ahead is far from certain. Policymakers, businesses, and communities will need to stay vigilant and adaptable as they navigate the complex landscape of risks and opportunities that lie ahead. Conflict and hope went hand in hand this week, as the world watched a series of pivotal moments unfold across continents. In a landscape often dominated by headlines of violence and division, there were also glimmers of diplomacy and the possibility of peace. The global community found itself at a crossroads, with leaders and citizens alike yearning for solutions to long-standing crises. In Geneva, Ukraine and Russia sat down for high-stakes ceasefire talks, a rare and fragile moment of dialogue between two nations locked in a devastating conflict. The willingness to discuss humanitarian corridors offered a sliver of hope to civilians caught in the crossfire, even as skepticism lingered about the durability of any agreement. The world watched closely, aware that even small steps toward negotiation can have life-saving consequences. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, Yemen's long-awaited peace summit concluded with a framework for a nationwide ceasefire. This breakthrough, the most promising sign in years, was the result of tireless diplomacy and international pressure. For millions of Yemenis, the agreement represents a chance for relief from years of violence, hunger, and displacement. Yet the road ahead remains uncertain, with many challenges to implementing and sustaining peace. In Sudan, African Union mediators helped broker a temporary ceasefire, opening the door for desperately needed humanitarian aid. Convoys began to move, bringing food, medicine, and hope to communities ravaged by conflict. The ceasefire, though fragile, is a testament to the power of regional cooperation and the urgent need for continued dialogue. On the Korean peninsula, tensions flared as military drills and border incidents raised fears of escalation. Yet behind the scenes, diplomatic channels remained open, with both sides signaling a cautious willingness to keep talking. The situation remains volatile, but the commitment to dialogue offers a crucial safety valve in a region where the stakes are always high. In Colombia, peace negotiations advanced as government officials and rebel representatives agreed on a detailed roadmap for disarmament and reintegration. This progress builds on years of effort to end decades of armed conflict, and while obstacles remain, the momentum is encouraging for those who have long dreamed of a lasting peace. Northern Ireland marked the 30th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement with commemorations and calls for renewed unity. The peace accord, once thought impossible, stands as a powerful reminder of what can be achieved through perseverance and dialogue. As new challenges emerge, leaders and communities are urged to protect the hard-won gains of the past. Around the world, progress is often slow and setbacks are inevitable, but these steps, however tentative, demonstrate that peace is possible, even when it seems out of reach. The journey is long and the pitfalls are many, yet each act of negotiation, each handshake, and each agreement brings us closer to a more hopeful future. Nature made headlines this week. Floods in Indonesia and the Philippines displaced thousands, while Europe's record-breaking heat signaled a new climate reality. The UN climate conference in Nairobi ended with a landmark deal to phase out coal and boost renewables, especially for developing nations. Wildfires in California and British Columbia highlighted the need for better forest management. Australia's scientists made strides in coral reef restoration, offering hope for marine conservation. Climate protests erupted worldwide, demanding urgent action. The message: the world can't afford to hit snooze on climate change. Now for some good news. Scientists announced a breakthrough Alzheimer's drug, and COVID-25 vaccinations have reached over 80% of the world, with new variants under control. Africa rolled out a new malaria vaccine, dramatically reducing infections among children. Astronomers detected signs of liquid water on a distant exoplanet, fueling excitement for space exploration. Japanese researchers created biodegradable plastics from seaweed, a win for ocean health. A global mental health summit in Berlin highlighted the promise of community-based care and digital therapy. Progress is happening, sometimes faster than we expect. The future arrived in November. The world's first commercial quantum computer launched, promising breakthroughs in medicine and climate science. A solar-powered foldable smartphone hit the market, and electric vehicle sales soared with new ultra-fast charging networks. AI-powered assistants are transforming accessibility for people with disabilities. Virtual reality is revolutionizing education, letting students explore history firsthand. A global cybersecurity initiative launched to protect critical infrastructure. Technology is making life smarter, greener, and more inclusive. Let's end with some uplifting stories. In Kenya, a solar-powered irrigation project boosted crops and inspired communities. Iceland became the world's first zero-waste town, and Brazil's teens launched an app connecting seniors to health services. Canada celebrated Kindness Day, sparking a wave of generosity. An Indian girls' school achieved record graduation rates, and an Italian town restored a historic mural together. These stories prove hope, innovation, and kindness are alive and well. Sometimes you just have to look for them. Thanks for joining me for this whirlwind tour of November 2025's world news. If you enjoyed the Roundup, like, comment, and subscribe. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.